Either we are sovereign, or we remain slaves forever and far away. We ask them to go back to their homes. Unfortunately, I say to you here today, as I like to say, the colonization has returned. There are still salon slaves who haven't understood.
Veins flows the blood of those valiant warriors who helped the whole world get rid of Nazism and many other plagues. In our veins flows the blood of those valiant warriors who were forcefully taken from Africa to Europe, America, Asia, or elsewhere to build these states during slavery. In our veins flows the blood of worthy men, robust men, standing men. Because of this, let's be proud and grateful for being descendants of the Alliance of the Sahel states.
Hello brothers and sisters, I hope you're all doing fine. Now, I'm sharing this video of Ibrahim Traore, the Burkina Faso president, who is calling out on all black people to unite, is calling out on African diaspora to come back home and invest, is calling out on all the black people to have unity and stop living in fear. Now, he's telling the Western countries to leave Africa because this continent has suffered in their hands for the longest time. He's calling out the youths in Africa to come out and fight for their own continent. So let's watch this video, then have a quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
President Traore said Africa had suffered and continues to suffer because of imperialists who think Africa is an empire of slaves and that Africa belongs to them. He further said the imperialists think African minerals, land, and resources all belong to them. He brilliantly went ahead to give the congregation some brief history of how African exploitation all started. He said the colonial masters had lied the African that a miracle of independence had occurred in the 60s, yet they left behind puppet leaders whom they continue to use for a sustained control of Africa. In his words, I quote, "They have no other purpose than to seek to live like the master, to satisfy the master, and to do everything that the master dictates to them. They steal, they plunder our states. They take everything to the master and their wealth is kept with the master. They do everything to live like the master and always satisfy him. When the master commands, they execute." Do you know who these puppets are? Ibrahim posed a question to the jubilant congregations. Ibrahim lashed out at African puppets who work with the colonialists to plunder Africa. Speaking with composure, he described the puppets as individuals who have no dignity, morals, and personality, and are always ready to betray their brothers to satisfy the master. They have betrayed us since independence, and others continue to betray us to the benefit of their master. These individuals continue against all odds to plunder Africa, to help the master plunder Africa, he roared. Traore wondered why economic polls conducted yearly showed Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger were ranked as the poorest countries. Yet the French did not want to leave these countries when they were asked to. Ibrahim Traore urged the people of the Sahel states to open their eyes and stand up for their rights. Citing that for 40 years, Niger had supplied uranium to France to power her nuclear plants that provide sufficient lighting in the streets of Paris, while the street of Niamey were in darkness. Ibrahim Traore highlighted the fact that African soils are full of numerous minerals, yet there is no single access road and social facility to such places, where the imperialists supported by puppet Africans were exploiting the resources. He said such behaviors by the imperialists were the major reasons the Sahel states decided to revolt, taking the matters of their states to their own hands. Ibrahim Traore blamed the increasing insurgency in the Sahel region to actions of sabotage by the imperialists, following his and his counterparts from Niger and Mali's refusal of requests by the imperialist powers to join the puppet gangs of African leaders who have been ruling Africa for generations. In his words, he said, "They approached us and asked us to enter the ranks to be part of the elite that must lead Africa because they have an elite form and trend that must be followed, that are embedded in this chain. We refused to enter their ranks and from then on the hostilities began. They made several mercenaries deformers agents to come down to the Sahel to lead barbaric, cowardly attacks against our people, hoping to break us so we can give up to their exploitation. Ibrahim Traore also noted that apart from the cowardly and barbaric attacks on the people of the Sahel countries, the imperialists and their puppet allies had orchestrated communication attacks packed with manipulation and disinformation to break the spirit of sovereignty and liberalization of the Sahel states. He was, however, grateful to the people of the Sahel countries, whom he said had understood all these tactics of the imperialists and were standing with the three leaders. That is Assimi Goïta of Mali, Umar Tachiani of Niger, and Traore of Burkina Faso. I quote, "The people of the Sahel have understood that we will never be able to manipulate them again. They know where they come from, they know what they do, and they know where they are going. We will no longer allow this. People are awake and people are fighting today, not for ourselves, but for future generations." Ibrahim Traore assured the populations of the Sahel region that the alliance of the Sahel states is ready to fight for true independence and freedom of their people and Africa at large, adding that the imperialists have three tools in their hands that they use to intimidate the Sahel countries: democracy, human rights, and freedom. Ibrahim wondered how the imperialists were the ones dictating to African people what values are and how they should be applied, saying that the Sahel countries had decided to take responsibility for their people, and that was why, according to him, Burkina Faso and Mali decided to defend Niger from the puppets of ECOWAS, whom they believed were being pushed by the imperialists, trying to regain control over the Sahel countries. In his words, I quote, "Very well, we have decided to take responsibility. This is why on June 26, 2023, when Niger decided to turn the page, you got a message. The puppets and their masters got on their horses. They put aside their local values and decided to wage a war against the people of Niger. We therefore said anyone who dares to take up arms against Niger will face us, because we will wage a war without mercy to the last drop of blood for anyone who dares to attack our states." Ibrahim Traore assured the citizens of Niger, "The decision the three Sahel states had taken to enter the Defense Pact will be there today, tomorrow, and forever, seeming awakening the dreams of true African revolutionaries like Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Menelik II, and many others," adding that the Sahel countries were considering to expand the pact beyond defense to include areas of infrastructure, education, health, finance, and economy, and better service delivery for the people of Sahel states. Ibrahim Traore is a true definition of the biblical King David, a leader God chosen to save the people, as he drew to the end of his speech. He urged all the leaders to do whatever they did with one common interest in their minds: their people first. As he said in his words, I quote, "May God illuminate each and every one of us. May God inspire us in the tasks entrusted to us. And above all, when we do all our work, may we only have one thing in mind: the supreme interest of our population."
They are labeling us as coup plotters, but we are not French, and we don't understand what they are referring to. The local values, which surely do not even understand the deep meaning of the word, also calls us coup plotters. Very well. We have appropriated it over the years. As far as Burkina Faso is concerned, you must have noticed that all bodies have been dismantled. No more training, nothing for the army. They have imposed in all our headquarters, all our schools, and all our strategic structures what they have called military advisors. When we revolted on September 30th, 2022, the first thing was to find out who these military advisors were and where they were. So we identified that the problem is deep. And the first thing was to ask them to leave our army.
Ils sont partis.
They left. And what I was telling you not long ago, you can't hope to find your lost object by calling on the one who stole it from you to come help you look for it. When we already have single-party advisors, we felt demonstrations. We were made to understand that we could not get by without them. And each time, as I was saying, this resulted in large-scale attacks on the ground. We got the message when, at the dawn of the year 2023, we decided to say no to foreign forces present here. We asked them to leave because we want to fight in our own terms. They probably didn't appreciate it. But why is he coming to our lands? We prefer to fight ourselves. We asked them to go back to their homes. Unfortunately, I say to you here today, as I like to say, the colonization has returned. There are still salon slaves who haven't understood. In their time, military officers wrote to us and approached us to tell us that it was a very bad decision and that we wouldn't last 2 months. Files were written. We were passed these files to do a strategic analysis of their thinking. We said, either we are sovereign or we remain slaves forever and far away. When the last soldiers left Burkina Faso, we understood what was it about. The impacts immediately followed. But what she had forgotten, it's that the people of Burkina Faso had understood our message and had committed themselves to the same path as the world. We quickly and suddenly reorganized ourselves. We noticed that all dormant terrorist cells woke up in Burkina Faso. We reorganized the army as quickly as possible, at an unprecedented speed. We created several units, and even if several others are to come, we equipped them. And today, this equipping continues, because in the coming days, in the coming months, what you will see coming to Burkina Faso must make our army a power to be feared. We have not skimped on the means. We understood that the fight that is engaged against imperialism, it's hard, very hard, but only the hard will pass. And the Burkinabe are tough, and we are going here. We have warned for more than a year the local values, the salon slaves, so that they do not betray their homeland for the benefit of imperialism. Some have understood, have lined up. Others have not understood, maybe thinking they are smarter. But today, we have no feelings about this issue that poses. Whoever is going to betray his homeland for the benefit of imperialism, he will be treated as such. Let's go back to our famous ECOWAS. Since we decided to leave ECOWAS, armchair slaves have been activated everywhere. They want to scare the people. They want to scare everyone. Thank God. In the recent past, there were only a handful of people who had the right to speak on TV platforms. That's what they were telling themselves. So who was ready for the gospel? Today, with the new technologies, which of course have advantages and disadvantages, everyone has the right to speak. And I think, my friends, you are the first to know this. Each one, everyone can have their analysis of a situation. We can certainly be wrong. But when you come to us to understand, we are open to explain the steps. Here, we will explain to you why we left this ECOWAS and where we are going next. Remember that it was created in 1975, and it was created by a majority of African coup leaders, as they like to say. They were soldiers who took power and who took their responsibilities to create ECOWAS so that there would be a real economic boom for the people within this space. Later, the so-called Democrats invited themselves to the head of our states. They completely emptied the community of its foundation. When, on July 26th, Niger decided to take its destiny into its own hands, we were surprised to see ECOWAS appear from I don't know where, with a standby force. Where was this force when thousands and thousands of Nigerians were killed by terrorists? Where was this force when thousands of Malians and Burkinabes were dying under the bullets of terrorists? They said that by force they were going to dislodge the valiant sons of Niger, who took the destiny of the country into their own hands. Do you believe that there are women in Niger? There are fighters there. The Nigerian army is warlike. They have been fighting for years. It is not a parade army or a peacekeeping army. And the armies of the AES have decided to unite. We are waiting for this standby force. This so-called Democrat must understand. When thousands of Nigerians died on their hospital bed due to lack of electricity or lack of medication in this crisis, they are responsible for these sanctions. They are responsible for these deaths. The same thing is happening in Mali. With Burkina, we have indirect sanctions because people need to understand. When they take their instructions from the other side, they come back and do everything to apply it here. Some have decided not to provide electricity to our countries. It is not free, and we pay for it, and this helps their economy. They tried to make Mali suffer, and of course by ignoring all the texts, and no longer providing electricity to Mali, hoping that the population would revolt. It doesn't work. When this lasted, some were forced to make their own people pay by increasing the cost of electricity. It will increase again. This teaches us several lessons. Several lessons in the sense that independence, which we advocate, the sovereignty that we take, we must do everything to make it be. They gave us some very good lessons, and we understood very well. Some have closed their doors, which, by the way, goes against all international texts because you cannot close the doors to a landlocked country. They did it. They violated the texts. The international community has not said a word. Nobody talked about ECOWAS. But in the ports, we do not transit our goods for free. We pay. And the countries that are doing that are reaping the broken pots today. And I think it's a lesson for them too, that they should not always apply the instructions of their masters. They need to understand this forever. ECOWAS has never issued a statement to congratulate a victory of our armies. Hardly. It even condemns with the tip of its lips, and very rarely when there are massacres. Where is this ECOWAS of the people? In short, we cannot list all the harm that has been done to our people. But we have consciously decided to withdraw and focus. Focus on our common organization, that is the AES. Remember, there is no fear. Because in perspective, and by getting to work, we have noticed one thing recently. Some have decided to ban the export of certain food products to Burkina Faso. Very well. They gave a duration. We will ensure that, at the end of this period, we will ban the entry of these products into our territory. Thomas Sankara said that the slave who is not capable of assuming his revolt does not deserve to be pitied for his fate. This slave will be the only one responsible for his despair. Do not get illusions from your master about condescension, and suspect the ones who claims to emancipate you. Only struggle liberates. And I'm going to tell you that if, to free himself, a slave has illusions about the providence of a belief that his master imposed on him to keep him in darkness, he is fooling himself. He will remain forever blind in the darkness and will never see the day. This is a message to all of Africa, and Burkina Faso stands in solidarity and supports all the peoples of Africa who are suffering martyrdom. But we also want to say that it's time for Africans to stop pitying their fate, to stop brooding and lamenting. We must fight. It won't come from heaven by itself. We must fight first, and God will help you. And Burkina Faso is ready to help all peoples. Tell all the peoples who are fighting. It's time they tell the truth to their leaders. In Burkina Faso, when it came to our contribution to equip our army, the deputies have no more salary. Today, they only have session allowances. The minister's salary has been reduced to the maximum, and the people contribute. You cannot fight and want the leaders to be an insulting luxury. The peoples must rise up and demand this from their leaders. And to conclude, I therefore call on all the peoples of the AES to remain united and in solidarity. All suffering has an end. The struggle we have embarked on is hard, but we must keep our heads on our shoulders because the fatal weapon of imperialism remains manipulation through communication. Know how to recognize local values. Know how to recognize salon slaves. Know how to recognize everything about the sneaky force to come and sell you false information. For yourself, stay calm and not divide yourself. Because imperialism has 1,000 tricks in his bag. You must be vigilant. Vigilant and very vigilant. Thank you to the people in the different cities who watch day and night to keep our homeland upright, and therefore pay tribute every day to the FDS and the soldiers who are fighting at the front. Thank you very much for...
Now, brothers and sisters, someone like Ibrahim Traore, who is very young and vibrant, has been talking about unity of black people. Now, he has been calling his own people in Africa to unite. He has been calling on leaders to make sure that they unite their people. Now, this is the first leader who is very interested in the black diasporans. Now, he's talking about black Americans. He's talking about every African American, every African diaspora who is interested to come back. Now, he's telling everyone that this is the time we should call our own brothers and sisters and let them not believe in the Western media that Africa is a jungle, that Africa is bad. Now, he's calling out on the Western countries to stop interfering and meddling into the affairs of Africa. Now, when we talk about these things, when we talk about black unity, it becomes a song to many people that it's very normal. And people think like they'll just talk and stop. And this is why when people are talking about black unity, they have never been taken serious. But when people talk about Western policies in Africa, they have been taken serious and they have been praised so much because they are the lords of corruption. They are the lords of evil in Africa. But when we have some good leaders like Ibrahim Traore, no one wants to talk. Now, when you come to Africa, so many people are now awakening that the wake-up call that Ibrahim Traore has been having on the African continent is now working. That so many people in the villages in Africa, so many towns and so many cities, people are talking about black unity. People are talking about Ibrahim Traore. People are talking about the likes of Julius Malema. People are talking about how Africa can be one continent. Now, I've been saying on this channel that people like Muammar Gaddafi were not eliminated because they were corrupt. They were not eliminated because they were dictators. No. If at all any person is called a dictator in Africa by the Western medias, just know that they are fighting for the motherland. That everyone fighting for the motherland has always been called an international criminal, and they have always come after them and they call them dictators. Now, when Ibrahim Traore started this movement, when Ibrahim Traore started saving the Sahel region in Africa, when he started calling out France to stop whatever they were doing to the people of Burkina Faso, to the people of Niger, and to the people of Mali, now they call him a dictator who had ascended to power as a result of a coup d'etat. But the same people later on are shut because of the development that Ibrahim Traore is doing, because the people in Burkina Faso are listening to their president, that the people in Burkina Faso are singing songs of Ibrahim Traore. They want him to stay in power and change that country. That the people of Burkina Faso had suffered a lot from wars to wars, jumping from one war to the other, that were being sponsored by France. Now, when Ibrahim Traore took power, Burkina Faso was in a very bad shape. The Sahel region was in a very bad shape, and he started cutting ties with France. He made sure the French people who are controlling the government by then were evicted from that country, and every ambassador from France who was living in that country was taken back to France. that he started cutting ties with the West, that the French army that were walking around and wandering uh, in the Sahel region were to be taken back to their country. Ibrahim said, enough is enough. We want our country back. We want our people to enjoy peace and tranquility. That our people deserve development. That our people deserve good roads. That our people deserve good services. And we are not going to continue the same way. That this must stop. And that's when the likes of Emmanuel Macron started having problems with Ibrahim Traore. That's when we had so many other forces in Africa talking ill about Ibrahim Traore, including my own president criticized whatever Ibrahim Traore was doing, that he was mistaken to be a dictator. Of course, he is not a dictator. If you do good in Africa, if you do good to your people in Africa, you are called a dictator. But when people violate the constitution, when people violate democracy in Africa while supporting the Western policies, they are called heroes. They are called democrats. They are called economists. So this is whatever Africa has been suffering from. The ignorance of black people for their own continent, that we have suffered because we, the people, have not been united, that we've lived in fear, we've lived in division. And this is why they got the better part of Africa, that they still colonize Africa. They still run so many companies in Africa, that they still mine our own mineral resources. They still exploit us at the expense of the black person. And this is why we say, if we can get all people united, if we can get all our people in Africa talking the same language of unity, we can have a very good continent. That we can have a continent where we have one president talking the same language, having one currency. And this is going to be the best part of this movement. That we have Pan-Africanists who are going around and telling people how we can improve our own motherland. And we have a bunch full of puppets in Africa. And this starts with we, the people. We must take and get rid of these puppets. That before our own brothers who have been sold so much they have been told so much lies about Africa come back. We must start by ourselves. We must get rid of bad leadership. We must get rid of corruption. This is whatever Ibrahim Traore is saying. The other day, I was seeing he fired the prime minister because the whole system he got was corrupt. He fired everyone. This is whatever we are saying. And I'm sure Africa is going to rise. I'm sure we are going to see so many other good things happening to Africa, because Africa has always been receiving bad things, that every bad thing comes to Africa. And this is why we are saying no, our people deserve the best. And we are going to do all it takes to make sure this movement doesn't stop, that black people should unite. Wherever you are, in the US, in the UK, Canada, Mexico, if you are in Spain, if you are in France, if you are in Germany, Italy, all black people should unite, because this is a wake up call to all of us, that when we unite, we are going to have the say. The same thing applies to our own African diasporans. Now, black people in the diaspora have always lived in fear and in division. That you hear stories of black people, the FBA, Foundational Black Americans, not talking to African Americans, those Africans who have migrated to the other side to look for jobs and all that, that there is classism still existing, that the people, we black people, cannot defend our own brothers and sisters in the diaspora. It's everyone for himself and God for us all. This is the narrative we are stopping from right now. This is the narrative Ibrahim Traore is saying, that it has crippled our own development. It has crippled black people, that we can't enjoy democracy, we can't enjoy independence, we can't enjoy liberation because we still live in fear and division. That the moment we will live, we are going to unite and stop having the fear of white people. This is when we are going to have real independence, that we are going to liberate ourselves, that our own brothers and sisters in the captivity land, those in the Babylon, are going to come back and they are going to unite and make Africa great again. This is a wake up call. Make black people great again and make Africa great, because I feel like we've never been given a chance to be great. So we can't say great again because it's the first time we want to liberate this continent and make it great. And if this happens, if this movement succeeds, we are going to have a one country called Africa, one currency, one president. We will speak one language, a language full of unity, a language full of energetic people. This is whatever we are saying. Rise, rise, Africa. Rise, rise, black people. Thank you so much for having taken your time to watch this video. I appreciate so much. If it's your first time, consider subscribing to the channel, like, comment, and share this video.